We've all had that scary moment when we want to share our feelings with someone special, but we get stuck thinking about what's wrong with us instead of what's in our heart. Clara Mitchell felt that way big time in the Colorado wilderness in 1880, standing face to face with Jake Thornton, a guy everyone in town was scared of and talked about in whispers. Jake was super tall, almost 7 feet, and people said he was rough and tough. Moms told their daughters to stay away from him. But when Clara was alone with him under the moonlight, something surprising happened. As she leaned in for what might have been their first and last kiss, she got nervous and mumbled about her bad breath, thinking he'd back off like others did. But Jake just smiled. What happens when someone looks past the things you're scared about yourself? Before we dive back into the story, let us know where you're reading from. And if you like this tale, hit that subscribe button because I've got something cool saved for tomorrow. The fall breeze carried the smell of pine trees and snow through Pine Ridge, Colorado, where Clara Mitchell stood by her kitchen window, watching the sun paint the mountains gold and red. Her dad's pocket watch ticked on the table behind her, the only noise in a house that felt too quiet since her dad, Judge Henry Mitchell, died 6 months ago. That watch was his favorite thing, a gift from Clara's grandpa, and now it was both a comfort and a reminder of time dragging on in a life that felt stuck between the past and the future. Clara pressed her hand against the cold window, her breath making it foggy as she looked at the far-off mountains where Jake Thornton was said to live. Townsfolk whispered about him, keeping their voices low when kids were around. That mountain devil, old Mrs. Henderson called him at church. 7 feet of pure trouble. Sheriff Morrison grumbled over coffee at the store. But Clara had seen something else in the few times she'd met Jake in town, a kind look in his eyes that didn't match his scary reputation. The Mitchell house was on the nice side of Pine Ridge, showing off her dad's important place in town. Judge Mitchell was a fair man, loved by ranchers and shopkeepers, and his sudden heart attack left not just Clara without a family, but the whole town without its guide. At 26, Clara inherited the house, a small ranch, and her dad's huge book collection, which made her one of the smartest women around, though the world didn't give her many ways to use it. Checking the ranch every morning was something she had to do and something that helped her feel better. Clara pulled on her dad's old coat and stepped into the chilly air, her boots crunching on frosty grass. The horses whinnied softly as she got to the stable, their warm breath making little clouds in the cold. Thunder, her dad's favorite horse, nudged her shoulder, a move that still made her teary months after her dad's funeral. "Morning, old buddy," she whispered, petting his neck. Thunder used to ride with her dad through the mountain trails, and now he seemed as lost as Clara. She fed the horses quickly, but her mind was on a chat she overheard at Garrett's store yesterday. "That Mitchell girl needs a husband," Mrs. Garrett said to a group of women who nodded. "It's not right. A young woman living alone like that brings trouble," Mrs. Coleman, Sarah's mom, added. "Thomas Brennan's been visiting her a lot. His dad owns the bank. You know, a good match for Clara." Clara had hidden behind pickle barrels, her face hot with embarrassment and anger. Thomas Brennan was a regular visitor, polite, well-dressed, and totally boring. He talked about money and the weather with the same dull tone. When he looked at her, Clara felt like he was sizing her up like a bank loan. The idea of spending her life hearing Thomas talk about interest rates made her feel as trapped as thunder in his stall. The sound of horse hooves broke her thoughts. Clara looked up to see Thomas riding up, sitting stiff as a board. He got off his horse neatly, fixing his vest and smoothing his perfect hair. "Morning, Clara," he said with a smile like a banker's handshake. "I hope you slept okay." "Fine, Thomas." "Why are you here so early?" "Business, sadly," he said, clearing his throat like he always did before serious talks. "My dad's been looking at your dad's accounts, and there are some things we need to talk about." "Maybe over breakfast?" Clara's stomach twisted. Her family never owed anyone anything. "What things?" "Nothing big, just stuff that needs the right guidance," Thomas said, like she couldn't handle it herself. "A woman shouldn't worry about complicated stuff. That's what husbands are for." His words made Clara's hands ball into fists. "Oh, so you're signing up for that job?" Thomas's smile slipped a bit. I think we'd make a great team. You need protection, stability. I can give you both. What I need," Clara said carefully, "is to know exactly what business you think needs your help." Before Thomas could answer, another horse came up the path. This rider sat easy in the saddle, moving with the horse, not stiff like Thomas. As he got closer, Clara's heart sped up. It was Jake Thornton, his huge frame somehow smooth on a horse that would make most men look small. Thomas stepped closer to Clara, his hand twitching toward his gun. "What's that wild man doing here?" Clara felt mad at Thomas's mean tone, but kept her face calm. Jake stopped his horse a polite distance away and tipped his worn hat. "Ma'am," he said, his voice deep but soft, "sorry to bother you, but one of your fence posts is down by the creek. Thought you'd want to know before your cows wander off." Up close, Jake was huge, over 6 feet tall, with shoulders that stretched his shirt. His hair was long, dark brown with bits of gray at the sides, making him look older than the town stories said. But his eyes caught Clara's attention. Smart, kind eyes that saw everything but didn't give much away. "Thank you," Clara said. "That's really nice of you." "Happy to fix it if you've got extra wood," Jake offered. "Won't take long." Thomas stepped up, acting tough. "We don't need your help. Miss Mitchell has people for that." Jake looked at Thomas calmly. "Didn't know you fixed fences, Brennan." "I don't," Thomas snapped, his voice getting loud. "But You're not anything to me," Clara cut in, surprised at her own boldness. She turned to Jake. "I'd like your help, Mr. Thornton. There's wood behind the barn." Jake nodded and got off his horse smoothly. "Thank you, ma'am." As Jake led his horse to the barn, Thomas grabbed Clara's arm. Not hard, but like he thought he owned her. It made Clara furious. "Clara, you can't let that animal work on your land. People will talk." "People already talk, Thomas, about everything," she said, pulling her arm free. "At least Mr. Thornton offers help instead of sneaky threats about my money." "It's not a threat," Thomas said. "It's concern. This ranch, this house, they need a man to manage them. My dad could make sure everything's handled for a price." Thomas's face turned red. "You're being silly. I'm offering you safety, respect. You're offering control," Clara said quietly. "And I'm not interested in being managed like one of your dad's bank deals." She left Thomas standing there and walked to the barn, where Jake was checking the wood like someone who knew what he was doing. He looked up as she came closer, and their eyes met in a way that made her breath catch. "Good wood," Jake said, touching a pine board. "Your dad knew his stuff. He built most of this place himself," Clara said. "Said a man should know his home inside out." "Smart guy," Jake said, picking up some boards easily. "Sounds like he was a good man." "He was," Clara said, walking beside Jake toward the creek, leaving Thomas behind without a care. "The town misses him. I miss him most." Jake's simple words about her sadness, without feeling sorry for her, brought tears to her eyes. "Yeah, I do." They walked quietly through the trees by the creek, where a fence post was knocked over, probably by elk. Jake got to work with tools from his saddlebags, moving fast and sure. "You don't have to stay," he said, not looking up. "I'm sure your fancy friend has more to say." Clara glanced back at the house where Thomas was pacing, mad. "Let him wait. This is my land." Jake hammered a new post into the ground with strong, steady hits. "Might cause you trouble." "I'm used to trouble lately," Clara said. "Sometimes trouble just looks different, like it's wearing work clothes," Jake said, tying wire to the posts. "Question is, are you ready for what comes with it?" Clara watched his hands, big but careful with the tools. She saw scars on them, old marks from hard work or maybe harder times. "Mr. Thornton," she said slowly, "what do people in town say about you?" "That you're dangerous? That you've killed people?" Jake stopped working for a moment, and Clara worried she'd said too much. Then he looked at her straight. "I've killed men," he said plainly. "In war to protect myself, but never anyone who didn't deserve it or hurt someone else first." He went back to work. "Don't know if that makes me dangerous or just careful." His honest answer made Clara feel better than any excuse would have. She studied his face as he finished the fence, the strong jaw, the focus in his eyes, how he seemed okay with himself despite what the town thought. "Done," Jake said, testing the fence. "Should last through winter." "Thank you," Clara said, not wanting him to leave yet. I've got coffee on the stove if you want some." Jake glanced at the house where Thomas was still waiting, annoyed. Might not be smart. "Your boyfriend looks ready to call the sheriff." "Thomas Brennan is not my boyfriend," Clara said sharply. "And this is my house. I'll invite who I want for coffee." A small smile appeared on Jake's face, the first she'd seen. "Then, ma'am, I'd be happy to." As they walked to the house, Clara felt something open inside her, like a locked door finally swinging free. Behind them, the fixed fence stood tall, proof that honest work and kindness matter. Ahead was whatever came from choosing real over what people expected. Thomas met them at the porch, his face full of barely controlled anger. "Clara, I really must say goodbye." "Thomas," Clara said firmly, holding the door for Jake. "Our business is done." As she shut the door, leaving Thomas fuming outside, Clara heard her dad's watch ticking on the table. Time wasn't just about things ending, it was about things starting too. 3 weeks after Jake fixed her fence, a huge storm hit, the kind only the mountains could bring. Clara was checking the cattle in a far field when lightning flashed and thunder shook the ground. Wind bent the trees, and raindrops hit her face like tiny bullets. She pushed Thunder into a gallop, racing the storm home, but it was faster. Soon the world was dark as night, and rain fell so hard she could barely see. Lightning kept striking, and Clara knew she wouldn't make it home before the worst hit. Then she saw the old line shack through the rain, like a gift from above. Clara had passed it many times, a little cabin her dad used during cattle roundups, sitting among pine trees halfway between the house and the high fields. She rode toward it thankful, but saw smoke from the chimney. Someone was already there. Clara paused. The storm was getting worse, and thunder was shaking under her. Lightning hit a tree nearby, making both her and the horse jump. She had no choice. She got off and led Thunder to the shack's small shelter, where she found another horse, Jake Thornton's sturdy bay. Her heart raced not just from the storm. The door opened before she could knock, and Jake stood there, looking tired but worried when he saw her. "Clara, Miss Mitchell," he corrected himself fast. "You're soaked." "Come in." The cabin was small but cozy, with a fire burning and Jake's coffee pot steaming. Clara had her mom's wedding dress in her saddlebags, wrapped to keep it safe, but it wasn't enough. When she checked it, her heart sank. The lace was torn and water stained the silk. "Oh no," she whispered, holding it up. It was her favorite thing, saved for her own wedding day. Now it looked ruined. Jake saw her sadness. "Family treasure?" "My mom's wedding dress," Clara said. "I was taking it to Mrs. Patterson for cleaning before—" She stopped, not wanting to say she'd been thinking about Thomas's proposals, wondering if she should be practical instead of romantic. "Before what?" Clara looked at the ruined dress, then at Jake's kind eyes in the firelight. "Before I almost made a big mistake." Jake took the dress gently, looking at it with surprising know-how. "Silk's strong. Lace can be fixed. Water won't ruin it if you dry it right." He hung it near the fire, careful not to burn it. Clara watched his big hands treat the delicate fabric so gently, and something inside her started to relax. "You know about women's clothes?" A shadow passed over Jake's face. "Had a sister once. She was good with a needle. Taught me some stuff." He cleared his throat and stepped back. "You should change out of those wet clothes before you get sick." Clara looked at herself. Her dress was stuck to her, her hair dripping. "I don't have anything else." Jake turned away and pulled a clean shirt from his bag. "This'll work till your stuff dries. I'll step outside." "In this storm? Don't be silly." Clara took the shirt. "Just turn around and look at the fire." As she changed behind him, Clara noticed Jake's broad shoulders, the way his hair curled at his neck. "Jake," she said softly, "what the town says about you being dangerous, why do you let them think that?" His shoulders tensed. "Sometimes it's easier to be what people expect than to fight it. That sounds lonely. Loneliness is safer than disappointment." Clara pulled his shirt on. It smelled like pine and leather and reached her knees like a dress. She felt close to him, wearing something of his. "You can turn around now." Jake faced her, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Clara knew she must look funny, barefoot, in his huge shirt, her hair drying in waves. But instead of feeling shy, she felt free, like the storm washed away more than trail dust. "Tell me about your sister," she said, sitting by the fire. Jake's jaw tightened. Talking about the dead doesn't do much good. Sometimes sharing helps. The storm roared outside, wind howling, rain pounding, thunder rolling like giant footsteps. Jake sat across from her, staring at the fire. Her name was Mary, 5 years younger than me, but way smarter. Could read by 4, wrote poems that made grown men cry. His voice was calm but tight. "When the war came, I joined to keep food on the table. Left her with my uncle in Kansas." Clara waited. "Came back 3 years later and she died of scarlet fever. My uncle sold her stuff to pay his debts. Everything, even her dresses. All I had left was a letter she wrote me before she died. What did it say? Jake pulled a worn paper from his pocket. That she forgave me for leaving, understood why I had to go, hoped I'd find someone to love me like our parents loved each other. Tears stung Clara's eyes. She sounds amazing. She was the best person I knew and I let her down. Jake folded the letter carefully. After that, I thought being alone was better. Can't fail anyone if you don't let them close. That's not living, Jake. That's just getting by. Sometimes getting by is enough. Clara leaned forward, her heart hurting for him. Your sister wanted you to find love, to be happy. By hiding away, you're not honoring her. You're wasting the life she believed in. Jake's eyes met hers in the firelight, and Clara saw his walls shake, showing the man he could have been without so much pain. What about you? He asked quietly. What are you getting by instead of living? The question surprised Clara. She thought of Thomas's proposals, the town's expectations, the safe, boring life she was supposed to want. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared of choosing wrong, of ending up stuck in a life that feels like dying slowly. What would the right choice feel like? Clara studied his face. The strong bones, gentle eyes, a mouth made for kindness and laughter. I don't know, but I think it'd feel like this. Like coming alive. Her words hung between them like a bridge they weren't ready to cross. Outside, the storm roared, but inside the cabin, something new was growing, fragile like spring plants. Jake reached out and touched her hand, his fingers brushing her calluses from ranch work. Clara, I'm not good at fancy promises or proper courting. I don't want fancy promises, Clara said, holding his fingers. I want honesty, someone who sees me for me, not what I should be. Being close to me won't be easy. The town doesn't get to pick who I care about. Jake's thumb brushed her knuckles, sending warmth up her arm. If I told you I've thought about you every day since I fixed your fence, I'd say I've thought about you too. The words surprised them both. Clara felt like she was at the edge of a cliff, and Jake was ready to jump with her into something unknown but wonderful. When the storm calmed near morning, Clara put on her dry clothes, not wanting to leave the cabin where they'd shared so much truth. Jake helped her saddle Thunder, their hands touching as he checked the straps. Clara, he said as she got ready to ride, what happens now? She looked at the cabin where they'd opened up to each other. Her mom's dress was packed in her saddlebags, still marked by the storm but not ruined, just different, like everything else. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm not the same person I was yesterday. As she rode home, Clara felt her dad's watch in her bag and realized some storms don't just destroy, they clear the way for something new. 3 days later, Clara noticed a chess set in Jake's cabin when she brought back his clean shirt. It was carved from mountain wood, light aspen for some pieces, dark walnut for others, sitting by the window, glowing in the sunlight. Each piece was detailed. The knight's mane looked alive, the queen's crown was fancy, even the pawns had their own style. Clara told herself she was just returning the shirt, but really she couldn't stop thinking about their storm night talk, how he'd looked at her when she admitted thinking about him. The proper thing would have been to send the shirt with a ranch hand, but Clara was done with proper. Jake came from behind the cabin with firewood, and Clara's breath caught seeing him. In town, with all the whispers, he seemed like a legend. Here, he was just a man, a really nice-looking man who moved easily and seemed happy to see her. Hey, Clara, he said, setting down the wood. Wasn't expecting you. I brought your shirt, she said, holding it out. And I wanted to say thanks again for the shelter and for listening. Jake took the shirt, their fingers touching. No need to thank me. That storm was too dangerous to ride in. Clara nodded at the chess set. Did you make those? Jake looked a bit shy. Winter project. Gets quiet up here when it snows. They're beautiful. Do you play? Some, you? My dad taught me, Clara said, looking at the pieces. I haven't had a good opponent since he died. These mountains don't have many chess players, Jake said with a small smile. Want a game? They sat at the table, and Clara watched Jake as he thought about his first move. The town's idea of him as a wild man seemed silly here. His cabin was small but neat, with books on shelves and careful details everywhere. This was a thoughtful man's home, not a monster's. Your move, Jake said, moving a pawn. Clara moved a piece, more focused on the cabin than the game. Jake, where'd you learn to read and carve like this? Army, mostly, he said, moving a knight. Had a sergeant who thought smart soldiers were better soldiers. After the war, I had time to practice. What did you do before the war? Jake paused over a piece. My family had a small farm in Missouri. Nothing big, but we got by. I was going to be a teacher, believe it or not. Clara looked up, surprised. A teacher? Hard to imagine. I know, but I loved books. Loved the idea of helping kids learn. His voice held old pain. War changed that. It doesn't have to stay changed. Jake took one of her pawns a bit too hard. Look around, Clara. You see any schools up here? Any kids who need teaching? There are mining camps in the high valleys, families with kids who've never seen a school. And what school would hire someone like me? Clara moved her queen boldly. Maybe reputations can change. They played quietly for a bit, but Clara watched Jake more than the board. His focus, the gentle way his big hands moved the tiny pieces, was fascinating. When he smiled at her clever move, her heart did a funny flip. Check, she said, moving her bishop. Jake looked at the board closely. Didn't see that coming. My dad said the best plans are the ones your opponent doesn't expect. Smart guy, Jake said, protecting his king. What would he think of you being here? Clara thought about her dad's wise face, how he judged people by their actions, not rumors. I think he'd like you, she said. He said a man's character shows in how he treats people who can't help him. You helped me in the storm for nothing in return. Maybe I wanted something, Jake said. Clara's heart sped up. What? Your company. His simple words made her cheeks warm. She moved a piece without thinking. Jake, I need to tell you something. Thomas Brennan's been, well, he's asked to marry me, sort of. He expects an answer soon. His dad's pushing him to settle down, and I'm suitable. Jake's jaw tightened. Suitable? That's what he said? Yeah, Clara said bitterly. Suitable for his status, his family's plans. Not loved, just suitable. What'll you tell him? Clara met Jake's eyes over the chessboard. I don't know. A week ago, I might have said yes. It's the safe choice, the one everyone expects. But now I know what it's like to talk to someone who sees me as more than a pretty addition to his life. Jake put his hand over hers. Clara, whatever this is between us, it won't be easy. The town's made up its mind about me. Then maybe it's time to change their minds. People don't change their minds easily, especially about things that scare them. What scares them about you? Jake was quiet, his thumb circling her hand. I'm not like them. I don't think like them or want what they want. That makes me unpredictable, and unpredictable is scary. What do you want, Jake? He looked at her with a spark that took her breath away. Right now, I want to forget chess and show you the view from the ridge behind the cabin. I want to hear you laugh, really laugh, not that polite sound you use in town. I want to kiss you properly, not because of a storm, but because I can't stop thinking about you in my arms. Clara's heart raced, but not with fear. Then why don't you? Jake stood slowly, eyes locked on hers. Because once I do, there's no going back to polite talks and keeping my distance. Clara stood too, the chess game forgotten. Maybe I don't want to go back. When Jake kissed her, it wasn't like the rushed moment in the storm. It was slow, gentle, and way more powerful. His hands held her face like she was precious, and Clara felt herself melt into him, like everything in her life had led to this. When they pulled apart, Clara rested her forehead against his chest, hearing his fast heartbeat. The view from the ridge, she said, out of breath. I'd like to see it. Jake's laugh was warm. Hoped you'd say that. As they walked hand in hand up the mountain path, Clara thought about the chess game they left behind and realized the best moves are the ones you don't plan, the ones that change everything with their boldness. Clara's mom's recipe book was open on Jake's rough table, its old pages yellow but the writing clear. Clara ran her finger along her mom's notes about herbs that grow in the mountains, how to save food for winter, and fixes for things like fever or a broken heart. She knew these mountains, Clara said softly. Mom came here from Boston as a bride but learned to love this place. Jake leaned over to read a recipe for rose hip tea, his warmth comforting. Smart lady. Rose hips keep you healthy when fruit's hard to find. For 2 weeks they'd been meeting like this. Clara bringing food and talk, Jake sharing his know-how about living in the mountains. What started as quick visits was turning into something deeper, something she needed like air. Teach me, Clara said suddenly. Teach me what? Everything. How to live up here, be on my own, survive without town gossip or banker sons. Jake got serious. Clara, that's not a game. Mountain life is tough, dangerous. One mistake can end you. Then don't let me make mistakes. Her firm voice surprised him. Jake looked at her, then nodded. Okay, but we start simple, and you do exactly what I say. The first lesson was building a fire in wet weather, something that could save your life in a storm. Jake watched patiently as Clara struggled with damp sticks, gently fixing her mistakes when she stacked them wrong or rushed. Fire's like trust, he said as her third try finally worked. Takes time to build right, but once it's strong, it'll keep you warm through anything. Clara knew he wasn't just talking about fire. How long did it take you to trust me? About 5 seconds after you stood up to Brennan, Jake admitted. But trusting myself with you? That's taken longer. They moved to plants, walking through the forest as Jake showed her which roots you can eat, which herbs heal, and which ones are dangerous. Clara learned fast, her book smarts helping with this new kind of learning. Your mom's book talks about Devil's Club, Jake said, kneeling by a plant with big leaves. Good for cuts and infections, but you gotta know how to pick it without getting hurt. He showed her how to handle the thorny plant, taking only what he needed. Clara saw scars on his hands, proof of lessons learned the hard way. Where'd you learn all this? Trial and error, mostly. Army taught me some, but mountains are different from battlefields. Jake wrapped the bark carefully. An old Ute man helped me my first winter here. Saved my life a dozen times. What happened to him? Died peacefully 3 winters ago. Good man, good death. Jake's voice held respect and sadness. He said the mountains pick who stays and who goes back to the flatlands. Guess they picked me. What about me? Will they pick me? Jake looked at her, seeing her determination. I think they already have. The last lesson was practical, how to treat a wound. Jake noticed Clara wince when she held the axe and found a deep splinter in her palm. This'll hurt, he warned, pulling out a sharp knife. I'm not fragile, Jake. But when the knife touched her skin, she gasped. Jake stopped right away. I'm okay, she said. Keep going. Instead, Jake put the knife down and held her hand gently. No shame in admitting pain, Clara. Courage isn't about not hurting. It's about facing it honestly. His kind words almost made her cry. Not from pain, but from feeling cared for by someone who saw her strength and softness as partners. I'm not used to being looked after, she whispered. I know. You've been taking care of your dad, the ranch, everyone's expectations. Jake's thumbs rubbed her wrists gently. But you don't have to do it all alone. He removed the splinter so gently she barely felt it, cleaned the wound, and wrapped it with cloth. Keep it clean and dry for a few days. Clara tested her fingers. Thank you. For what? For seeing the real me, not what everyone else wants. Jake held her face, his eyes serious. Clara, what I feel for you, I can't take it back. If you're not sure about us, tell me now. Instead of words, Clara kissed him, putting all her certainty and love into it. When they pulled apart, Jake rested his forehead against hers. I should take you home before people talk. They're already talking. Mrs. Henderson saw me heading here and told everyone at church. Jake's face darkened. If this is causing you trouble? The only trouble is Thomas Brennan cornering me after church, demanding to know about my bad behavior. What did you say? That my behavior's none of his business, and neither is who I spend time with. Clara smiled. He didn't like that. Men like Brennan don't like hearing no from women they think they own. I'm not his. I'm not anyone's. No, you're not, Jake said, proud. You're your own woman, and any man worth having knows that. As the sun set, Jake walked Clara to Thunder. Before she got on, he took her hand. Clara, promise me. If this gets too hard, if the town's pressure is too much, you'll tell me. Don't face it alone. Only if you promise the same. No more hiding in the mountains because you think you don't deserve happiness. That's a tough promise. Will you make it? Jake looked at her, then nodded. For you, I'll try. As Clara rode home in the dusk, her mom's recipe book in her bag, she felt a new purpose. Jake's lessons weren't just about surviving, they were about living on her own terms. Pine Ridge's lights glowed below, but Clara looked back at the mountains where Jake lived, where she was starting to feel she belonged. Clara found a military medal in a box under Jake's blankets while organizing for winter. Her fingers felt the metal when folding wool. Jake, she said, holding up the bronze star with a faded ribbon. You never told me. Jake's face went blank like when people whispered about him in town. Didn't seem important. Clara read the inscription. Medal of Honor for bravery and courage beyond duty. This is the highest military award. It's just medal for things I'd rather forget. What did you do to earn it? Jake sat heavily on his bed, hands clasped. Battle of Stones River, 1863. My unit was stuck under enemy fire, losing men fast. They ordered us to retreat, but wounded guys were trapped. I went back for them, made 4 trips under gunfire, saved 17 men. That's amazing, Jake. You saved 17 lives. Lost 12 others who might have lived if I'd been faster or smarter. His jaw tightened. Medals don't bring back the dead, Clara. Clara wrapped the medal and put it back. Is that why you came to the mountains? Guilt? Part of it. Jake stood and looked out the window. After the war, I tried normal life. Worked in a factory, tried dating a nice girl, acting like the war never happened. But nightmares woke me screaming, or loud noises made me duck like bombs were falling. What happened to the girl? Sarah, a shopkeeper's daughter, deserved better than a broken soldier. She tried to understand. But how do you explain church bells sounding like artillery? Clara's heart hurt for him. So you came here? Figured I was too dangerous to be around. Mountains don't judge you for being broken. He turned to her. At least not until you showed up. Now I remember what I fought for. Good people living free, loving who they choose, building something better. Clara stood beside him, looking at the snowy peaks. You're not broken, Jake. You're a man who's seen awful things and survived. That's strength. Some days, I'm not sure. Then I'll be sure for both of us. Jake faced her, his eyes vulnerable. Clara, there's stuff about me, what I've done. I don't care about that. I care about who you are now. If people knew about the medal, why I came here, they'd see they were wrong about you. Clara touched his face. You're a hero, Jake, the kind that saves people. I didn't save Mary. You couldn't save Mary. There's a difference. Her voice was gentle but firm. You can't carry guilt for every life you didn't save when you've saved so many. Jake held her hands against his chest, where his heart raced. Sometimes, with you, I almost believe that. Believe it always. They stood in the fading light, and Clara felt Jake's hidden pain, the weight he'd carried alone. She understood why he chose to hide, letting the town think he was dangerous instead of showing his true self. The nightmares, she said carefully. Do you still have them? Less now. Having a purpose helps. Being with you helps most. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Clara, if we build a life together, it won't always be easy. Some nights I might not sleep. Some days I might need to be alone to feel human again. And some days I might cry for my dad or get mad at how unfair it was to lose him young. Clara smiled softly. We all have scars, Jake. The question is, do we heal them together or let them hurt alone? Jake pulled her into his arms, holding her like he thought he'd never deserved something so good. I love you, he whispered. I love you more than I thought I could love anything. I love you too, Clara said, the words easy as breathing. All of you, the hero, the hurt, the kindness, the scars. Their kiss was full of months of holding back, and Clara matched his passion, pouring in all her understanding. They were breathless when they stopped. Clara, Jake said roughly, if we keep this up, I know what I'm doing. Do you? I crossed that line the night of the storm, she said. Everything since has been finding the courage to admit it. Stay tonight, Jake said. Let me show you what it's like to be loved for exactly who you are. As snow fell outside, Clara made her choice. Not the safe one, not the expected one, but the one that felt like coming home to herself. Clara found her teaching certificate in her dad's desk, yellowed but clear, with her name in fancy writing. Clara Elizabeth Mitchell, certified to teach grades 1-8 in Colorado. She got it 2 years before her dad died, but Pine Ridge already had a teacher and proper ladies didn't work far from home. Now, with Jake's latest letter on her desk, the certificate felt like a key to a forgotten door. The letter was short but upsetting. Jake was pulling back after their night together, his words careful, saying she shouldn't visit for a while so he could figure things out. Clara crumpled it, mad. She understood he wanted to protect her, but his noble act was annoying. They'd found something real, worth fighting for, and he was trying to push it away because he thought he wasn't good enough. A knock broke her thoughts. Sarah Coleman stood on the porch, looking worried. Clara, we need to talk. Over tea, Sarah shared bad news. The whole town's talking about you and that mountain man. Mrs. Henderson saw you riding to his place 3 times this week and says you've lost it. Mrs. Henderson should mind her own business. It's not just her. People are worried. They think he's taking advantage of your sadness, making you believe lies. Clara set her teacup down hard. What lies? That he cares about me? That he's a good man? Sarah reached out. Clara, men like that don't marry women like us. They use us and leave when they're bored. Men like what, Sarah? Good men? Honest men? Men who see women as more than pretty objects? Dangerous men. Wild men who live outside normal life for a reason. Clara paced to the window. Jake Thornton is the most normal man I know. He's smart, thoughtful, kind. He's killed in war to protect his country and friends. That makes him a hero, not a monster. Sarah looked shocked. How do you know about his wartime? Clara realized she'd slipped. Jake's past was his to tell. I know because I actually talked to him, not listened to gossip. Clara, you're defending a man you hardly know against people who care about you. I know him better than you think. Do you? Do you know why he came to these mountains? What he's hiding from? He's not hiding. He's building a life alone. He chose to be alone for a reason. Sarah's words hit hard. Jake had pulled back, written that distant letter. Maybe she was right. But then Clara remembered Jake's eyes when she found his medal, the trust when he told her about his sister. That wasn't fake. Sarah, I appreciate you worrying, but I'm not a kid who needs saving from my own choices. What about your place in town? Your dad's reputation? If you keep this up, no decent man will want you. Maybe I don't want a decent man. Maybe I want a good one. Sarah sighed. I'm trying to help. Thomas Brennan's still willing to marry you despite the talk. In exchange for what? My freedom? My self-respect? Clara looked out the window. Thomas looks at me like a horse he's thinking of buying, judging my value by my dad's land and how well I'd run his house. That's what marriage is, Clara. A practical deal. That's what you've been told. But I've seen something different. After Sarah left, Clara held the teaching certificate, an idea forming, dangerous but exciting. There were kids in the high valleys, mining families who'd never seen a school. Jake had mentioned them when talking about his old teaching dreams. What if she could start a school in the mountains for kids the system forgot? She had the skills, and Jake knew how to live up there. It'd mean leaving Pine Ridge, her dad's house, and the life everyone expected. It'd mean gossip and being shunned. But it'd also mean freedom, purpose, and a life with the man she loved. Clara started a letter that could change everything. 3 days later, she rode to Jake's cabin with the certificate and determination. She found him chopping wood, his swings sharp and angry. He looked up, his eyes guarded. Clara, I told you to stay away. I got your letter, she said, getting off her horse and facing him. I'm here to say you're being dumb. Jake's axe hit the block hard. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Happiness? Love? A real chance? Clara pulled out the certificate. This is my life, Jake. My education, my dreams, my choice. And I choose you. I choose us. Jake looked at the certificate, understanding dawning. Clara, what are you thinking? I'm thinking of a school in the mountains. Kids who need learning, families who need hope, 2 people who love each other building something good. The town won't forgive you. Then maybe it's time to find a new town, or build our own. Jake set down the axe and stepped closer, his guard breaking. You'd give up everything, your dad's house, your place, your safety. I'm giving up nothing. I'm gaining what matters. Jake kissed her with a desperate passion, like he'd been fighting to let go of the best thing in his life and couldn't anymore. You sure? He asked against her lips. I've never been surer. As they held each other under the mountains, Clara felt her dad's watch ticking, marking not lost time but a new beginning. Clara found a land deed in Jake's copy of Shakespeare's sonnets when it fell while she was cleaning his cabin. The paper fluttered out like a secret ready to be told. She picked it up to put it back, but her dad's legal training made her notice the official seal and fancy writing. She unfolded it and sank into Jake's chair, shocked. The deed was for 2,000 acres of mountain land, including silver deposits, signed by Jacob William Thornton 3 years ago for $50,000 cash, more money than most in Pine Ridge would ever see. Find something? Jake's voice made Clara jump. He stood in the doorway, his face calm but tense, like he'd feared this moment. Jake, this deed, I can explain. Clara stood holding the paper. You own all this land. The silver alone must be worth a fortune. Clara, you've been worrying about my future, whether I could support a family. What people would think if you married a poor mountain man. Her voice shook. You've been lying to me. I never lied, Jake said, frustrated. I needed to know if you cared about me or what I could give you. You were testing me. Every woman who's liked me wanted something. My size, my reputation, the mystery. Not Jacob Thornton, the man. Clara felt sick. So you tested me by lying? I needed to know you'd stay if life got hard. What did you learn? Jake stepped inside, pain in his eyes. I learned you're different. You care about real talk, not fancy gifts, character over comfort. You'd rather fix fences with me than shop for dresses with a banker's son. You learned that by lying. I learned it by watching you choose me when you thought I had nothing but myself. Clara sat back. The deed crumpled. 50,000, Jake. Where'd you get that? Jake's jaw tightened. You mean a poor mountain savage like me? No, that's not what I meant. Really? Because you're looking at me like I'm a stranger. Clara forced herself to see the man she loved, not the liar. She was hurt, but also relieved. He wasn't facing poverty. Confused why he hid something that should have been good news. Tell me where the money came from. Jake looked out the window at his land. My grandpa left me railroad stocks. Bought cheap when people thought the railroad was a crazy idea. When it worked, they made a fortune. And you didn't tell me because the last woman I trusted tried to have me locked up as crazy to get my money through marriage. Sarah, that shopkeeper's daughter, worked with her dad and a lawyer to have me put in an asylum for war-related instability. They thought a guy with nightmares wasn't fit to handle his own money. Clara's anger softened. Oh, Jake. I found out their plan the night before they'd have me arrested. Left Chicago that night with just what I could carry. Came west. Bought this land under a fake name. Jake Thornton's close to my real name, Jacob Thornton Williams, but different enough to hide me. Clara looked at the deed, seeing it as proof of how much Jake risked letting her in. You could have stayed hidden forever. I couldn't keep lying to you, not if we're building a life together. The school, Clara said suddenly. With this money, we could build a real school, hire teachers, help mountain families. Jake turned to her. We. Clara stood and moved to him, holding the deed. I'm mad you didn't trust me from the start. I'm hurt you tested me. But I get why. You were protecting yourself from something that almost broke you. Clara, I'm not done. She pressed the deed to his chest. I'm also glad the man I love won't struggle up here, that our kids won't worry about food. I'm excited about what this means for the school, for helping people. Jake held her hand. And I need you to promise no more secrets, no more tests. If we're together, it's all honesty, even when it's hard. Clara kissed him softly. I didn't fall for your money. I fell for the man who carved me a chess set, taught me to survive, held me in a storm, and made me feel safe for the first time since Dad died. The money changes what we can do, not how I feel. Clara smiled. Though it'll take some getting used to, dating one of Colorado's richest men. Jake laughed, relieved. You forgive me? I forgive you. But if you test me again instead of trusting me, I'll use those mountain skills you taught me to make your life tough. Understood, Jake said, pulling her close. No more secrets. Good. Now show me the rest of these papers. If I'm helping manage this empire, I need to know what we've got. As they spread the papers on the table, Clara felt everything click into place. They weren't just two lonely people. They were partners with the power to change their world. The lies were done. The real work was starting. Clara's dad's law books were a huge help in the weeks after learning about Jake's wealth. She spent hours reading about property law, mining rights, and territory rules, figuring out how to protect their mountain school and Jake's land. The book showed Jake's ownership was solid, but there were legal gaps that sneaky people could use, like claiming Jake wasn't mentally fit or got the land by fraud. Jake, Clara said one night by lamplight, have you used your real name, Jacob Williams, anywhere in Colorado? No, been careful. Why? Clara pointed to a book. If someone proves Jake Thornton isn't a legal name, they could say you can't own property. They'd need to show fraud or mental issues, but with tricky lawyers, they could steal everything. Jake's voice was grim. Sarah's dad was a banker. He'd know these laws. Has anyone from Chicago been asking about you? Not that I know, but I've stayed out of sight. A knock at the cabin door cut them off. Jake checked the window, hand on his rifle. Sheriff Morrison. And Thomas Brennan? Clara felt cold. This late? That's not a friendly visit. Jake opened the door carefully, keeping the rifle close. Sheriff Brennan, what's up? Sheriff Morrison looked uneasy, holding his hat. Sorry to bother you, but I've got official business. Thomas pushed past, angry but smug. "No need to apologize, Sheriff. We're dealing with a criminal." "What's this about?" Clara stepped forward, chin up. Thomas pulled out a paper. "Fraud, Clara. This man's been lying to everyone. His real name's Jacob Williams, wanted in Chicago for theft and assault." Jake stood still. "That's not true." Thomas unfolded what looked like a warrant. "Says you attacked a businessman and stole $50,000 before running." Clara grabbed the paper, spotting problems right away. "This isn't a real warrant. No proper seal, no territorial judge's signature. It's signed by an Illinois judge," Thomas said, "valid under extradition law." "No, it's not," Clara said firmly. "Extradition needs territorial approval. This has none." Sheriff Morrison looked confused. "I don't know legal stuff. I got a telegram from Chicago asking to catch a fugitive matching Jake's description with serious charges." "Can I see it?" Clara asked. Morrison handed over a crumpled paper. Clara read it fast. "This is from a private person, not law enforcement. It's not legal." "He's a banker, respected," Thomas argued. "He's the father of a woman who tried to lock Jake up to steal his money," Clara snapped. "This is personal, not criminal." Thomas's face turned red. "You're defending a fraud, Clara. He's using a fake name." "Using a shorter name isn't fraud," Clara said. "And it doesn't give you the right to steal his land." "What land?" Thomas said, too innocent. "Far as anyone knows, Jake's just a squatter." Clara's mind clicked. "How do you know about the land, Thomas?" "It's not public knowledge." Thomas slipped. "My dad's bank's been looking at investments, mining, development." "Your dad's been digging into Jake's property," Clara said quietly. "How?" Sheriff Morrison cleared his throat. "Let's sort this without yelling. Jake, I need you to come to town. We'll wire the Capitol, clear this up." "No," Clara said, stepping between them. "There's no valid warrant or extradition papers, just a telegram with no weight." "Clara, don't make me arrest you," Morrison said. "Then don't." Clara pulled her dad's honorary deputy badge from her pocket. "I'm using my dad's authority as a territorial legal rep. Jake's under my protection until this is reviewed." It was a bluff. Her dad's badge didn't give her real power, but in the messy territorial law, it might work. Thomas exploded. "This is crazy." "I'm serious," Clara said, facing him. "Thomas, get off this land now. It's not his land." "Actually, it is," Jake said calmly. "Legal deed, properly filed, bought with honest money. Challenge it in court if you want, Brennan." "We will," Thomas growled. "My dad's got lawyers in Denver. You'll be left with nothing." After they left, Morrison relieved, Thomas furious, Clara and Jake sat quietly. "They know about the money," Jake said. "More than that, they've been snooping for weeks," Clara said, pacing. Thomas knew about the deed. "His dad's been planning this." "Planning what?" "To steal your land. If they prove Jake Thornton's not legal, they can say the land was bought wrong, then claim it. Just like Sarah's family in Chicago." Clara stopped. "Jake, we need to file papers now, proving your real name and right to the land under both names. We have to get to Denver first. That means showing myself, the thing I've avoided." "Yes, but it protects what we're building." Jake stared at the fire. "If this goes wrong, if they take the land, the money, we'll figure it out. But if we don't fight, they win, not just the land, but your life, your freedom." Jake looked at her. "You won't lose me?" Clara took his hands. "Never. We face this together." Jake nodded. "Okay, we go to Denver, file everything, then come home and build our school. Show them love and grit, beat greed and hate." As they got ready for the fight, Clara felt her dad's watch ticking, pushing them toward the future, ready or not. Jake's rifle felt steady as they raced toward Pine Ridge, the Denver stagecoach in sight. The morning sun cast long shadows, and Clara felt the weight of their fight like a storm coming. They'd learned too late that the Brennans were moving faster, heading to Denver with fake papers to prove Jake was crazy and Clara was tricked by a dangerous man. "There," Jake pointed to a hill above the road. "We can stop them before they reach the courthouse." Clara checked her saddlebag, land deed, Jake's military records, his grandpa's estate papers. Everything to prove the Brennans' lies was there if they could get to Denver first. Gunshots rang out. Jake stopped, scanning the road where the stagecoach was halted. Armed men on horses surrounded it, pulling passengers out. "Bandits," Jake said darkly. "Or worse." "What's worse?" "Brennans might have hired them to get rid of us for good, blame bandits." Clara felt cold. "You think Thomas would do that?" For $50,000 in silver and your dad's land if he married you? Men have killed for less. The lead bandit yelled orders Clara couldn't hear, but his goal was clear, robbing passengers. The driver was bleeding from his head. Jake, we have to help. I know, Jake said, his voice hard like when he spoke of war. If shooting starts, stay behind cover. I can shoot. Dad taught me. Jake nodded. Don't play hero. That's my job. Right, keep up. They moved from high ground, hiding behind rocks and trees. Clara counted 6 bandits, armed and nervous, ready to shoot at anything. Jake moved like he was made for this, finding a spot with clear views, planning like he'd done this in worse situations. When I shoot, he whispered, get to the stagecoach. Get those people safe. What about you? I'll keep the bandits busy. Jake's first shot dropped the bandit leader before he knew what hit him. The others scattered, shouting. Clara ran to the stagecoach where passengers hid. She was shocked to see Mrs. Henderson from Pine Ridge clutching a bag, praying loudly. Mrs. Henderson, you okay? Clara Mitchell, what are you doing here? Are you hurt? No, but the driver... Clara saw the driver slumped, bleeding. We need to get him to town. More shots came from above, Jake keeping the bandits pinned. 2 were trying to sneak around him. Mrs. Henderson, can you drive a stagecoach? My husband taught me. Good enough. Clara helped the driver into the coach. Get everyone to town. Send the sheriff back with help. What about you? Clara checked her rifle and climbed toward the gunfire. I'm not leaving Jake. She found him behind a boulder, shooting calmly like a pro. I told you to go with the coach, he said, eyes on his targets. And I said I'm not leaving. Clara settled beside him, watching the land. 2 circling left, 1 behind us. I see them. Jake's next shot dropped a bandit. Clara, if something happens to me... Nothing's happening to you. We're both going to Denver, filing those papers, building that school. Clara shot at a flash, hearing a cry. Together. Jake looked at her, seeing her as an equal. Together. The last 3 bandits ran, and Jake let them go, more worried about Clara. You're hurt, she said, seeing blood on his sleeve. Just a graze. You okay? Clara looked at the mess of the ambush. Think they worked for Thomas? We'll find out. But first we ride to Denver. Fast. As they mounted their horses, Clara felt stronger after facing danger together. Whatever waited in Denver, they'd face it as true partners. The ride had never felt so urgent or so possible. The Denver courthouse was a big brick building smelling of leather, tobacco, and old decisions. Clara held the legal papers tightly, knowing everything depended on the next few hours. They'd beaten the Brennans to Denver by half a day, riding hard all night, dusty but determined. Jake wore a proper suit, looking like a successful businessman, which he was. Mr. Williams, the clerk said, checking Jake's military records. Medal of Honor, honorably discharged, no criminal record. That's right, Jake said calmly. And Miss Mitchell, you're Mr. Williams's legal helper? Yes. My dad was Judge Henry Mitchell from Pine Ridge. I know territorial law. The clerk nodded, respecting her dad's name. What are you filing? Clara laid out the papers. Legal name verification for Jacob Williams, also Jake Thornton. Property deed for 2,000 acres in Pine Ridge, including silver rights. And a plan to start a school on that land. The clerk checked each paper carefully. Looks good. I'll record these. The courthouse doors slammed open. Thomas Brennan marched in with his dad and a fancy Denver lawyer. Stop this now, the lawyer said. We're challenging these filings for fraud and mental unfitness. Clara's heart sank, but Jake stayed calm. What proof? The lawyer pulled out a folder. Affidavits from Chicago about Mr. Williams's mental state, violent behavior, and stealing his inheritance. Can I see those? Clara asked coolly. The lawyer hesitated. They're private medical... Nothing's private in court, Clara cut in. I can see any evidence against my client. The clerk agreed. The lawyer handed over the papers reluctantly. Clara read them fast, spotting issues. These affidavits aren't signed. No doctor's name backs them. The doctors want to stay anonymous to avoid trouble, the lawyer said. Anonymous claims don't count in territorial court, Clara said. And these incidents are from Illinois, outside our jurisdiction. Thomas stepped up, red-faced. Clara, you're wrong to defend this man. He's dangerous. Mr. Brennan, Jake said quietly, pulling out a telegram. This came from the Pine Ridge sheriff. The bandits who attacked the stagecoach were caught and said who hired them. Thomas paled. That's impossible. They were paid to kill Clara and me before we got to Denver, Jake said. By someone who knew our travel plans. The lawyer looked shocked. Thomas, you didn't tell me? I don't know what you're talking about, Thomas stammered. Clara stepped forward. The bandits said where they were told to hide our bodies. A mine shaft on land your bank's been checking for silver. The clerk looked worried. Are you saying this is attempted murder? I'm saying, Clara said. Thomas and his dad have been trying to steal my client's land with fake laws and violence. She pulled out another paper. This is a surveyor's report from 3 weeks ago filed by the Brennan Bank, claiming Jake's land as unowned. Mr. Brennan spoke up. That's just guesses. Is it? Jake said, showing a signed confession. Your surveyor admitted you told him to lie about the land being unclaimed. The lawyer looked alarmed. Gentlemen, if this is true, it's not, Thomas shouted. Clara, you're ruining yourself defending this fraud. No good man will want you. Clara felt cold and sure. Thomas, I wouldn't marry you if you were the last man in Colorado. I'd rather be alone than fake love for someone I can't stand. Thomas raised his hand like he'd hit her. Jake grabbed his wrist fast, making Thomas yelp. Touch her, Jake said coldly, and you'll see how dangerous I can be. The clerk banged his gavel. Enough. Mr. Brennan, you're out of line. As the sheriff restrained Thomas, his dad tried one last move. This is a misunderstanding. We can work something out. The only deal, Clara said, is you drop all claims against Mr. Williams's land, apologize in court, and face charges for conspiracy and attempted murder. Mr. Brennan looked at his son, the evidence and his lawyer backing away. We drop our claims, he said heavily. The clerk stamped Jake's papers. Mr. Williams, your property is confirmed. Miss Mitchell, your school plan is approved pending inspection. As the Brennans were led away, Clara and Jake stood alone in the hall. It's over, Clara said softly. No, Jake said, pulling out a gold ring. It's starting. He knelt. Clara Mitchell, I love you more than I thought possible. You've seen me at my worst and best and stayed. Will you marry me? Clara's heart stopped. Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes. Jake slid the ring on her finger and it felt perfect. They kissed in the courthouse, surrounded by their victory and the promise of what was next. 5 years later, Clara looked at their wedding photo, seeing not just her and Jake, but the community around them. Sheriff Morrison, now Jake's friend after the Brennan truth came out. Mrs. Henderson telling everyone how Clara saved her from bandits. Sarah Coleman, who admitted she was wrong about Jake and became Clara's friend and the school's first teacher. Even some doubters came around. The Thornton Williams Mountain School was a pride of the area, teaching kids from 3 counties to read and dream big. Clara touched her gold engagement ring, now with a wooden wedding ring Jake carved. Their marriage was everything she hoped and nothing she expected. There were hard times. Jake's nightmares came back their first winter, but Clara stayed patient, comforting him. Mama, tell the story again, 8-year-old Mary said, climbing onto Clara's lap. They'd adopted Mary and 2 boys, Samuel and Joseph, orphans who found a home at the school. Which story, sweetie? The one about warning Papa about your breath? Clara laughed, looking at Jake helping the boys with math. At 35, he was a great teacher and dad, with silver in his hair and laugh lines replacing old tension. Well, Clara started, it was during a big storm. I love this part, Mary said. Your mama was nervous, Jake called out, thinking I was a scary mountain man. Were you scary, Papa? I was scared, Jake said honestly. Scared your amazing mama would see my flaws and leave? But she didn't, Samuel added. No, she stayed and helped me see that being scared doesn't mean you can't be brave. Clara met Jake's eyes, feeling the same spark from their first night. Tell the bad breath part, Mary said. I was so nervous about kissing your Papa, Clara said. I thought he'd hate my bad breath. But Papa didn't care, Jake said, joining the story. He cared about bigger things like how brave and kind your mama is, how she sees the best in people. Telling stories was Clara's favorite part of their life. The kids loved hearing about their parents' love, always asking for more details. After the kids were in bed, Clara and Jake sat on their porch watching stars over the mountains. The school's dark windows would light up tomorrow with kids learning. Any regrets? Jake asked, a question he sometimes checked. Just one, Clara said, making him look worried. I wish Dad could have met you. He'd have liked you. Jake held her hand, touching her calluses from mountain life. I'd have liked to meet him, asked to marry you properly. Oh, you'd have had his okay. Dad said a man's worth is in standing. Up for what's right, even if it's hard, especially if it means his daughter marrying a man the town feared. They sat quietly, listening to owls, wind, and the creek from their first meal together. "Clara," Jake said, "ever wonder what would have happened if you'd said yes to Thomas?" "I'd have felt like I was suffocating, living a fake life full of regret. And if I hadn't fixed your fence? I'd have wondered about the mountain man who seemed different, never knowing love could feel like this." Jake kissed her hand. "Good thing we were both brave enough for the impossible." As they got ready for bed, Clara saw her dad's watch ticking on the dresser. Time had brought love, partnership, purpose, and a family built on choice. Tomorrow meant teaching, serving, raising kids. But tonight, in Jake's arms, his heartbeat steady, Clara knew she'd chosen right. Love wasn't about perfect people. It was about seeing past each other's fears and being brave enough to do it together. The last thing Clara heard before sleep was her dad's watch, marking a life better than any story she could have dreamed.